everybody, and welcome back to Ask the Unfaithful. My name is Sam. I'm with my counterpart, James. How are you today, buddy?
Sam, I am fantastic. How are you? Wearing black today. Little Johnny Cash going on.
I thought I'd start the week off with just a nice black shirt, although I'm not feeling black inside. I'm feeling pretty strong. I'm in Austin, Texas. It's incredibly windy and overcast, and allergies are running rampant. So if you hear a sniff, it's not because your words are so moving and so just touching my soul. It might be a little bit of allergies, although your words are moving and they do touch my soul. We've done some really great episodes lately, and on behalf of James and myself, thank you for so many comments, so many email, and we've had a lot of requests for certain questions to be answered, which we will be doing, not all of them, but a lot of them in the future. Today, we're going to ask a question that is, I think, probably one of the most practical questions that we have had to answer for early on in recovery. Because as you would attest to, recovery is a little bit messy. It's not a perfect process. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, there's going to be indifferent days, and there's going to be awful days. And in the middle of this process, we can hurt our partner, especially we, the unfaithful, because we don't just flip a switch and get healthy. We don't just flip a switch and all of our maladaptive coping mechanisms are gone. All of our narcissism or self-absorption and defensiveness is gone. But today's question is, how does the unfaithful make amends early on in recovery? Now, please understand, we're not talking about making amends for the infidelity. That is a far more structured process, a far more definitive process that would take us a long time to describe, which we're going to do at another time. But today, for those of you that are in recovery, trying to do work, and it just gets muddy, and there's just hurt, there's pain, it's not perfect, you step on each other's toes. So, James, kick us off. How does the unfaithful make amends early on in recovery for just hurting their partner, for not being perfect, for not being able to just snap into perfection? Not that the betrayed is asking them to be perfect, but they're asking them to do work, right?
Sure. And this is a process that is really helpful because it's going to make an apology meaningful. And again, as you said, this isn't apologizing for the infidelity. This is apologizing for things that can happen on a day-to-day basis as an unfaithful becomes more and more empathetic, but is learning how, and really is working on feeling what their partner is feeling and really anticipating any hurt they may cause. So in the meantime, as they're learning that, they are going to cause some hurt. And so this is how to repair that. And that is what an amends is for.
And learning how to be empathetic, because
Right.
we don't just automatically know how to be empathetic.
No, we don't. And here's the thing, the proper amends not just is for the partner, because what it's going to do is it's actually going to increase our ability to be empathetic. And there's a reason for that. And when we get into the parts of this amends process, we'll see what that is. But it is also going to increase our emotional awareness, our emotional quotient, if you will, the EQ, right? Which sadly, as unfaithfuls, we do not have a very highly developed EQ. So, right. I always say, well, starting out, I was probably 4 years old emotionally. And, now I'm like 17 and a half.
We want you, the viewer, to understand that today's not going to be a bunch of flowery language, because the betrayed is not looking for words, they're looking for actions. And the betrayed is not looking for just a bunch of more words that just shows that you know how to use better words and check boxes. and have so many times betrays will feel like, they're saying the right things, but I don't feel it. It doesn't feel, and I can't feel them. And I'm quite honestly tired of words. I want to see some actions. So jump right into it, James. What are some ways that you can make amends?
Okay, so first of all, sorry is a not a helpful word. We've said that over and over again. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry for everything I've done, right? Or I'm sorry for all of that. No, those are not specific enough. They're if anything, they're disrespectful. They really diminish the meaning of the apology, right? And this has to be a heartfelt apology, first off. And so when we say sorry, it's just really stupendously inadequate and frankly a cop out, right? Because we're not saying why we're sorry. We're not going into how what it did to our partner because frankly it re-traumatizes. When we gaslight, when we say something mean, when we say something out of anger, all of which we're learning about and trying, hopefully learning about and trying to stop. But these things are going to happen as we do that. So we have to repair that. We have to take the opportunity to repair that. And so, look, we can say sorry. What ends up happening is that we just use the word almost ubiquitously for everything, right? And
Mm,
so it becomes a very overused word. And so it's lacking, right? So the first part of this process is really identifying what we are sorry for. So I like to use the word apologize because it takes that trigger of the word sorry out of it. We've overused it. It's become more of a for a partner. They're going to hear it and go, "Oh man, here we go again." Right. So I apologize for blank is
mm,
the first step. I apologize for being argumentative. I apologize for putting you down. I apologize for being mean. I apologize for gaslighting you in this way, right? I apologize for lying. I apologize for omitting. I apologize for protecting, which we've talked about before. The only person we protect when we omit stuff out of in the name of protection is ourselves. So that's the first part. I apologize for blank. Name it and be very specific. So that is the first part. And what that does is it tells your partner, I know what I did, and I know what I did because I'm naming it.
And I
Right.
think there's something to be said that there's empathy and there's heartfelt, and then there's just checking boxes.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, for an unfaithful to say, "Hey, I'd like to chat with you for a minute and tell you I would like to apologize for seemingly bullying you or for being heavy-handed. I'm sorry, that was wrong. I see that for what it is." Having, I think the Gottmans talk about a dusty startup that's just 0 to 100. I'm sorry, I'll apologize. It means so little. It actually means negative to the betrayed. But just having an approach that says, I would like to apologize, or honey, I need to apologize, or listen, if you can take a breath for a minute, I know you're really upset. I would like to apologize for being so harsh with you. Empathy, compassion, and effort go a long way. Am I wrong?
You are absolutely right. It needs to be very apparent, right? That it needs to be apparent that you are really linking into your partner's feelings here, because otherwise it is going to sound very, very hollow. Now, the rest of the amends process is actually going to push you or almost force you into that empathetic role. So, a key bit here, and I'll probably bring this up again, is don't get lost in words. right? Because if you have to be very specific in this, and if you're not, then you risk a few things. One, that the apology just gets drowned out in the words. Two, that you start reversing it into asking for pity, asking for, or
Mm,
gaslighting again, basically, right? And so you do not want to do that, because then it's again, as you said, the opposite of meaningful. It actually isn't meaningless. It becomes worse than that. It
mm.
becomes another traumatization, another thing that you are going to have to apologize for. So then you're making an apology for making a bad apology,
Right.
right? So next part of this is really identifying how you hurt your partner. So you can't make the assumption. You can't say something like, I know it hurt you this way, right? There has to be a qualifier in there, because you don't know, right?
Right.
And you can't make that assumption. But what you can do is say something like, I can only imagine that it hurt you this way, or I believe it must have hurt you this way. Do you see what that does? It says, okay, I'm trying this, right? I'm trying to go into my empathy and be able to identify what it must have done to you, right?
Right.
It doesn't, and it leaves it somewhat open-ended. So I can only imagine, or I feel that um, it must have made you feel, or it must have hurt you in this way. You know, you can leave the in this way off, but it must have made you feel pain again, or that, okay, here we go again, he's lying again. Oh man, is he ever going to change? Must have made you feel sad. I feel it must have made you feel sad and angry, right? It doesn't have to be an encyclopedic list. It really should be anywhere from 1 to 3 things. You're just making your best attempt to describe the feelings. Now, there's a reason that then you pause and then you add, is there anything more? Did I miss anything? Right? Some form of that. Make it your own, right? You can use this very formally using, how we're saying it, right? And as long as your partner understands that this is something you're learning how to do, that way you're doing very formal stuff in order to learn how to do it in a more fluid way, right?
Well, and there's also something to be said, like I said a few minutes ago, is that effort goes a long way. So I'll teach my clients, whether they're male or female, when they are apologizing or trying to make amends, to say, you probably felt this, you probably felt that. You're not assuming, but you're trying to show effort to see how your actions impacted them. And you can be wrong, but at least you tried, instead of, I apologize for how I handled that. Well, to me, it would make sense to say, I apologize for how I handled that. It probably made you feel demeaned, devalued, or just treated like some servant. And I never want you to feel that way. Even if that's wrong, the
Right.
betrayed has an opportunity to say, hey, that was pretty good that you actually tried to put some work in there. You actually tried to be empathetic and tried to make a deeper comprehensive understanding of how that could affected me. Now, you didn't remember that I also felt this and I also felt that, right?
Yeah, so that brings us to that next point, is that question, is there anything more? Is there anything I missed? Now the partner gets to put in and add to, or say, well, that's not really quite on target. This is actually how I felt. The beautiful thing about that is that this is where the heightening, or the increasing the EQ and the empathy comes about, because now we're being informed by our partner what she or he was actually feeling, right? And so now we're not making assumptions every time. We can consider those things, and if that fits what we've done, then we can add that into our vocabulary, our empathetic vocabulary, and really start to link to that. We might also find that it's somewhat surprising. Really? Wow, that made you feel that way? Because
Mhm.
that's really deep. That's heavy because that's where we're able to see where we're really falling short in our empathy and be able to really identify that with that.
Yes.
So
Here's what I love about something that you said, and I think the principle of asking, "Is there anything else?" is a bigger principle for superpower strength by the unfaithful. When the betrayed is having reminders and triggers to be able to say, "Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?" Because we
yep,
want to shut it down. How soon can I make this conversation stop? How soon can I end this uncomfortable feeling that I am feeling? But when the unfaithful can say, "Is there anything else you'd like to ask? Is there anything else that I can apologize for? Is there anything else that you want to talk about?" To me, that's a superpower that you're not afraid to talk more, that you're not afraid to own more, that you're not afraid to sit in the fire just a little bit longer with the person that you're making amends with.
yeah, absolutely. We have to develop that ability to hang tight, to stay with our partners as they go through that pain, to stay present, to not offer solutions, to stay in the moment rather than running off in our mind or even physically, right? And we talked about that in previous episode.
Now, we talked offline about this. We still haven't talked about the most important variable for many betrayed partners in this instance. And this is the final variable that is where the rubber meets the road, and it has probably the greatest opportunity for impact. I'll let you talk about it. What is it? What is the secret weapon?
The secret weapon is point number three. I am going to work on changing that by doing blank. So this is the plan of action. What am I going to do so that I can change how I do that? You can't say using absolutes is a mistake because if you say so that I'll never do that again, well, that might be your intent, right? And guess what? Until you learn how not to do it, you might do it again. So
Right.
don't make promises you can't keep because right now you need to be making promises that you can keep to rebuild trust, right? So I am going to work on changing that by, for example, making an appointment with my therapist or my coach or calling a sober support or talking to my sponsor or journaling on it and then talking to somebody. Just having a very specific plan because your partner needs to hear not just words, right? Because words are just this, but what is the action? So when uh, we did a survey of many partners. It's an ongoing survey, so I can't really say what the total number is, but it's a significant number. And we asked them about this amends process and said, well, what are the most important parts of it for you? And to a one, they have said that the third part, the action plan, is the most important. They did say, you have to have the number one and number two, but that number three is the most important piece. So this is a word of warning to unfaithfuls. Don't jump ahead to number three. You hear that a
Right.
lot. Or don't say, I apologize for this. This is what I'm going to do about it. You have to identify the feeling in the middle because guess what? That was the second most important and not that far behind number three. The first
Yeah.
one goes without saying because if you don't identify very specifically, and also there, I just want to say you have to own it. It's really important to be specific, to not use words that water down the ownership, right? You have to own it. You have to own it fully. So if I say, well, I apologize for letting my anger maybe get a little bit of control over me. No, I apologize for letting my anger out at you in such a disaster, in such a nasty, mean way, right? Or you know, I apologize. You used seemingly bully earlier, so rather than using seemingly, I'm going to just say I apologize for bullying you. Now, you may be in your mind going, well, did I or did I not? The fact is, it probably landed on most probably, or it did land on your partner as bullying. So,
Yeah,
remove any language that might water it down, right? So
right.
that's really important. Now, the changing that by, right, come up with a solid plan, and guess what? Follow through.
The ability to apologize in a heartfelt way, I think, is such a game changer. But then to put action behind it when in the past, especially if there's been multiple affairs or multiple disclosures, the betrayed is not very trusting and the betrayed has their guard up. So to hear the unfaithful have a very streamlined approach has to communicate to the betrayed a sense of, okay, well, wait a minute, hold on. They didn't get defensive, they didn't get angry, they didn't, get this victimy. I'm sorry if it made you feel this way. We hate that. But just having that concrete, straightforward, but compassionate nature, wouldn't it be safe to say it's not always the apology, it's the heart that we bring to the
Yeah.
apology, which then goes to the betrayed?
You know, the beauty of this amends process is it takes the brain out of it and lets you lead with your heart,
Mm,
right? Because, okay, I know that this is a three-step process. Now I can lead with my heart. I don't have to think about how I'm going to do this, right? Or what all the right words are. This is leading with your heart. And you know what? When your partner says, "Yeah, that wasn't quite how I felt," that isn't a correction. That wasn't quite how I felt, you idiot. That was that wasn't quite how I felt. Let me clarify that for you so that you better understand it in the future. It's a beautiful opportunity to connect, to actually establish a little more trust, right? The more you do this, the better. Here's the other part of it. Don't wait,
yeah.
right? So if you have to have a guideline for this, don't wait any more than 24 hours. Frankly, I have found that making an amends as quickly as possible. So even if it's in the moment, I catch myself and I go, oh, and Sharon and I use this thing called a redo that we have talked about in other videos, but may I please have a redo? Sometimes she'll say to me, do you want a redo? And I'll be, oh, yes, I do, please. And then of course I have to identify, okay, where did I just hurt Sharon, right? And so, you know, you don't have to be exactly right about where did I just hurt my partner. The
And
most
it
important part is to start making the amends, right?
and to yeah, the most important part is to start to make amends, put some effort into it in a way that says, "Hey, I can make this my own." I can say, "Okay, based upon your response, doesn't look like my apology, so let me try this again. Let me do what that knucklehead Sam and James talk about a redo. Let me try a redo." And being able to be present with themselves and being able to say, look, I'm really trying here. I'm really giving themselves self-compassion that it doesn't have to be perfect, but that putting some effort into it is actions speak louder than words. So the betrayed is going to see you putting some actions. And it can be very endearing to the betrayed to see that the unfaithful is like, okay, hold on, let me redo this. Let me put some better effort into this.
Right.
It's the power is in the process, as John Maxwell says, right? The day by day, really putting effort and intentionality into this.
Absolutely. So I agree. Partners will ultimately find this endearing. Initially, they may not, right?
Right.
Initially, it's going to be like, can I really believe this, that this is
Of
happening?
course,
Can
100%.
I feel
100%.
all of it, right? And so the more that it's done, the the more that actually is shown to be the truth of how you're acting and how you want to be. So this is for all of the unfaithfuls out there, this is about staying in your integrity because up until discovery, you were living out of your integrity, way
100,
out of integrity. So this
100%.
this is a part of rebuilding your own integrity and your own self-respect. And when you're, as you say, you use some self-compassion, if you say to yourself, I've got to be perfect in this, well, then you're never going to do it. And guess what? You will, when you mess it up, you will be under that perfectionist rule of, okay, I can't do that again. Right. And that you have to be compassionate in order to continue to work at this. So that self-compassion is not mollycoddling. It's not putting yourself into a victim role, because that is
Right.
not, you're not the victim in this. So what it is saying, okay, I didn't do that well. I want to do that better. So I'm going to learn. And the feedback that I just got from my partner on that helps me learn. Right. So you will get better and better and better at it. And the more immediately you handle it, the less problems there are going to be. Because think about a lie. When you told a lie in the past, and the longer you took to correct that lie, the worse it got. Or the longer you took to make it, and the longer you take to make an amends, the worse it's going to get. Because then you've got a partner sitting there in all that pain, and they're in trauma again, right? So do it as quickly as possible.
I think this has been so streamlined and so helpful for an unfaithful who's trying to find better ways to make amends and apologize. It's also been super helpful for a betrayed to have some markers to look for. What might be helpful for you unfaithful, if this resonates with you and you have actually been a bad apologizer, you have actually done a lot of the things that James and I have said to stay away from. You know what might be good? It might be good for you to have a moment with your partner now where you do this and you actually apologize for so many bad apologies, for so much defensiveness and accusation, for actually not being very good at owning your part. Maybe that would kick them off in the right direction, James. What do you think?
I think absolutely. And make sure that you're looking into her or his eyes.
Yes.
Knee to knee is the best way to do this. If your partner does not mind touching knees, then that's a great way to do it. Um, this assures that you're actually connecting fully in the apology, and your heart is opening up.
I think it's a great idea. If you're an unfaithful and you own this and you think, man, James, Sam, you hit me right between the eyes. You know what? Go make an amends with your partner right now and have a moment with them that's sincere, that is from an attitude of ownership, and try it out. See if it doesn't create the opportunity to build on that over the next few weeks and months that recovery would take. As always, James and I are so grateful. If we can help you, if you'd like to ask us a question for an episode, or if you're looking for coaching, or if you're looking for an intensive, or if you want to get more help, just reach out at asktheunfaithful@gmail.com. We would love if you would subscribe and leave a comment on this episode. We always love to hear from you. And we know that we heal in community. And so we hope that many of you unfaithful and also betrayed are finding a sense of community by these videos and by asking questions and emailing us. Any final thoughts from you, James?
Uh, yes, I'm going to post the amends process right at the end after we say goodbye, so that people can take a screenshot or write it down. And that'll be hopefully really helpful moving forward for unfaithfuls.
I love what we do. If I had these things early on in recovery work, I know it would have been a whole lot easier. So I love the idea of you posting it. So unfaithful and betrayed, take a screenshot, make it part of your daily dialogue. And once again, James, thanks for being a just a wonderful picture of safety, because being able to find safe people who don't shame the unfaithful, attack the unfaithful, or demean them is vital. We didn't coddle anybody today, but I love the straightforward do these things and watch your betrayed start to open up to you a little bit more.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next time.